Hello there, fellow movie fans, and welcome back to another edition of the ONETA Show, brought to you by PTE Creative. As always, we are your hosts, Evan Davies, and our favorite internet bald man, and yes, movie expert, despite what the trolls like to say to us, Dylan Davies.
I wouldn't go that far myself, but
We
sure.
try, we try, but congrats, we finally have a troll. It's pretty rad.
Hey, that's good. Gotta love them.
Gotta love it. Yeah, my apparently your takes on Cole Sprouse are just too hot to handle for some.
Yeah, what can I say? When you hate a guy, you hate a guy.
But here we are. We're moving. We're grooving. This is the first show of the movie show that I'm recording in my new apartment in Madison, Wisconsin. So I'm a happy camper. And we are continuing our big box office series. So what are we watching today, Dylan?
We got E.T. 1982.
All right, so 1982's E.T. Now, before we even start, let's just do our courtesy. The movie's over 40 years old, but there's spoilers in this, just so you know, guys. 'Cause we should probably at least say it before we get an hour into the thing. Um, but I have just finished this movie roughly 20 minutes ago as of recording, so it's quite fresh in my brain. Initial thoughts before we really go scene by scene, point by point.
I mean, I love the movie. One of my favorite movies of all time.
um, so I was a bit taken aback. So the movie is great. That's just straight up. Let's just say what it is. The movie's great. The one thing that threw me off is I did not remember how, just visually speaking, how dark this movie is. It's all just so much. It needs light in so many ways, or you think it
Two.
needs light, and it's crazy how it is. There's just like no light to be found in this movie whatsoever. So that was my first like takeaway right off the bat of seeing the movie and how we were doing things here. But I love I love this movie because even when I was watching and I'm tired. I literally just got done driving across the country yesterday, and I'm tired as hell. And yet, still, it's a very emotional story. Even when I'm kind of like, I don't know, does that connect well? Does that connect well? It's still a very emotional story to behold. So clearly, it's doing something right.
Do you remember the first time you watched this?
No, because I want to say I watched it as a kid, but I have no recollection of watching it as a kid. And then
Yeah, I don't think I watched it as a kid either.
and then it's one of those movies that because so many people have watched it and it's just part of the cultural zeitgeist that it's really easy to think that you know the movie.
Hmm.
And I think I watched part of it in my teen years, literally just part of it, or I saw scenes from it, so I was like, oh yeah, of course I know E.T. And then I want to say I only watched it for the first time like all the way through maybe within the last 5 years.
Okay. Yeah, I think I saw it for the first time when I was probably like 15 or 16,
Yeah.
when I was first like becoming obsessed with movies
Yeah.
and Spielberg. So I think that's when I first saw it.
Okay. Now it's certainly an interesting. It's such an interesting, different thing for Spielberg at that time.
Well, I mean, he's going just hit after hit pretty much at this point.
Well, I mean, yeah, what we got from
Because there's
75
only,
onward, what does he have? I mean, it's
it goes Jaws, Close Encounters, and then there's 1941, which is a comedy movie with, like all the Animal House people,
yeah.
which it's not a very good movie, but it's okay.
All
It's
right.
kind of, it's very different in terms of Spielberg because it's
Okay.
actually just a straight up comedy. And then you got Raiders and then ET.
Gotcha. Okay. So I was gonna say though, he's pretty much batting 1,000 at this point.
Yeah, and like I mean, so just because this is the box office and I wrote it down. 473 million domestically in its lifetime, and then 792 million worldwide.
Holy shit.
Um, so 1.3 billion adjusted for inflation, which is the fourth highest all time. After Gone with the Wind, um, Star Wars, and I think The Sound of Music is third. So
Okay.
it's in good company.
It's in good company, clearly. So, yeah, clearly Steve and team are doing something right over there.
Yeah. Then he just had the biggest box office hit with Raiders too.
Yeah, so I mean,
So I mean,
back to back years is pretty fucking impressive to be able to do that,
yeah,
and to do it in
and back
two vastly different styles and two vastly different films, pretty impressive.
to back Oscar nominations for Best Picture.
Yeah. Hey man, shit's impressive. Shit gets real. It's impressive, and
Yeah,
it's fun to
I
see.
mean that's why he's a master.
It's kind of hard to outdo the man, though. Frankly, let's just be honest.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it. Uh, intro, not the kind of
Oh
intro
wait,
you're expecting.
one
Oh,
more thing I wanted to mention before we jump in.
go for it.
It's only a $10.5 million budget, which adjusted is $36 million today.
That is a studio's wet dream.
That's a like a small budget movie nowadays. That's crazy.
That is a studio's wet dream.
Yeah.
To be able to put the equivalent of $40 million in and get 10 times that back.
Yeah. Apparently they bought Steven Spielberg a mansion after this. Just, just bought it straight up for him because they're like, "Hey, I mean, the amount of money you made in like fucking Bosnia probably covers this mansion."
I
So,
mean,
yeah.
it's an impressive movie, and again, there's just something universal about the storytelling aspects of it that are quite interesting, and I think that's why even in this movie, when there are times that I think it might be slightly disjointed, there's just something universal to like about it, which is kind of crazy to think
Yeah.
about.
I don't think there's another director who's as good at achieving the sense of wonder as Spielberg is. Like,
Yes.
I can't even think of anyone even close to him, honestly.
No, to get a sense of there is a childlike wonder in so
Yeah.
many of his films that just it's seemingly impossible to capture, which is why when you do get those moments outside of Spielberg, they're just special because
Yeah.
they're fleeting, which is why Spielberg is the best because he captures these moments that you don't think you should be able to capture.
Yeah, and they're not just movies for kids either.
No.
They're mostly grown-up adult movies, but somehow they are still entwined in this whole sense of wonder, which is great.
Yeah, it is insane. And I think that's the best way to jump in. Is what I love about this right from the jump is if you are trying to analyze this film or you are trying to see common threads, like I said, this movie is visually dark. But I think that's all to really capture the sense of what it is to be a child in this situation, in this momentous occasion in the world where it's just you happen upon a new friend almost. But right off the bat, you get this really eerie and mysterious music that is somewhat off-putting through the opening credits, but yet at the same time, there's something. It's bringing you in. It's drawing you in, but the tone is not. It's more menacing than it is welcoming. With with the
I think
Williams music.
I think that's intentional though.
Yeah. And then it slowly bounces to mystery, and then it slowly goes back to menacing, then it slowly goes back to mysterious, these little whimsy notes. And admittedly, it's not fair because the movies are only separated by like 2 years, but it's almost impossible for me to hear the ET music, especially at the beginning. And you're getting this whole, like, after the credits, you're getting the whole dark scenes in the forest, and you're just seeing lights through the trees, which is a beautiful shot, by the way. But the little flutes coming through, I'm just like, are we with Yoda and fucking Dagobah right now? Because I'm hearing the similar notes, and I'm like, I'm happy. I don't give a shit. I'm happy.
Yeah, this is definitely the prime of John Williams. I
Oh,
mean, it's amazing. His resume is amazing in total,
yeah.
but like this 10-year gap is like insane. How many great scores there are.
It, to think that in a just not even a 10-year gap, a 5-year gap, he
Yeah,
has he has some of the most iconic. This is the least iconic of that 5-year gap.
I would disagree.
But think about that though. You have Star Wars, Superman, Raiders. Like those three are like his three of his biggest ever. And then
Yeah,
his weakest
yeah,
and
sure.
heavy air quotes is E.T., which is some of the most brilliant scoring you'll ever hear. And anybody who ever has worked in a movie would be jealous to have something that good. And that
Yeah, if you
of a 5-year time from 77 to 82, that is his weakest.
yeah, if you did just the ET score, you'd probably be happy with your career overall.
Oh, absolutely. You couldn't
But
be.
then he just adds movie after movie after movie.
I mean, he eventually he becomes the master of the march. He becomes the master of the overture, so to speak, of how do we create the iconic music. That's what I feel modern movies really lack. Is with some of these superhero movies, with some of these movies that are clearly trying to be bigger,
Mhm.
is they lack that big piece of music that just immediately grabs the audience's attention and brings them into the moment. It's as if that's a lost art of the 80s and the 90s.
I think it kind of is, honestly.
And there are, outside of Hans Zimmer, I don't really think of anyone who does modern music where you're like, "Whoa."
But even Hans Zimmer, I mean, he was still, you know, really hitting a stride in the '90s too. So it's
Yeah.
not like he's like a newcomer.
Yeah,
No, he's
exactly.
still part of the old guard.
Yeah, like who's even a good not good, that's not fair, but who's even remotely making something that special nowadays? Like Giacchino kind of is there.
I would say he's the closest we have to
Yeah.
like the person, just because he does do varying scores at least.
Yes.
Like there's Up and Ratatouille and The Incredibles. I think
Right.
is an incredible. That's a great score.
And yet he can do something more dark like the Batman. He can do something more
Yeah,
light and superhish with with the new Spider-Man stuff. He has this ability to do a lot of cool things. And I did like his directorial debut with Werewolf by Night, the Marvel special. If you haven't watched it, but
I
um, it was crazy to hear Michael Giacchino was like, the fucking composer is going to be directing a Marvel project. Okay, whatever.
mean they have good sense of timing at least.
Okay, so, um, but nonetheless, yeah, I think he's the only one of a more of a modern batch that has the ability to make something of a big, big score. Ironically, a lot of video games have better scores now than movies do, which is absurd to think. But um, and everything has raised the bar around it that it's harder for a movie to stick out. But at the same time, E.T. is a perfect example through that first opening 4-5 minutes. That's a long ass sequence of straight darkness. You're looking through trees and you're seeing these weird plants, but you're not. But you're in a northern California forest. where we are exactly, we don't know, but you are being carried by the music. You're being carried by that
There-
John Williams score.
until they cut to Elliot and his family, there's no dialogue,
No.
but you still perfectly understand what's going on.
And you understand the tone and the danger, which I really
Yeah.
appreciated. Um, I love the use of light in this movie. I said it could use some more light, but the I love the impending sense of danger and mystery throughout everything, which is so crazy because this is far more of a kid friendly Spielberg film than a lot of the stuff that he's doing at the
Yeah,
time. Um,
but kid friendly in the '80s is different than kid friendly nowadays.
oh yeah, kid friendly
And
in the '80s is absurd compared to now.
I really miss that now.
It is funny that I feel like I bring it up every show, and I really don't mean to, but this is a perfect time to kind of talk about it. If I try to let half the kids watch half the shit that we watched as a kid, I'd immediately get my ass chewed out. If,
Yeah,
like, I no longer work with kids, but I remember the thinking, like, having to cheat the system. I was like, well, Goonies is PG. In no way, shape, or form is that a PG movie. No way, shape, or form.
Eh, it's not that bad.
It's the language and the darkness and the traps that are causing death, possibly, and all that. It's done in
Yeah,
hijinks. It's done in that. I obviously love it. I would, if I had kids of my own, I would definitely show it to them, just like we were shown Goonies early on in life.
yeah,
I mean, what we watched Goonies when I was 8, and you were about 6, probably.
yeah. I was watching Child's Play at 6, so
Exactly. Like we had extremely laissez-faire parents when it came to media, when
yeah,
it came to
for
media
sure.
consumption. I remember Dad vividly. Yeah, I remember Dad just so clearly. If my kids can't handle it, they'll let me know. So he just let
Yeah,
us do whatever, and I was the one where I avoided stuff like Child's Play. I couldn't handle that shit. It wasn't for me at the time, and now I'm like, slashers not my cup of tea. But I knew at the time, not for me. Where you love that shit and you could handle it, and it's so wild to think of as this is the kid friendly Spielberg piece at the time.
yeah,
And one of the first quotes the kid says to his brother is penis breath. And
hmm
it's so dimly lit and dark the majority of this movie, and there's a tone of scare throughout.
yeah. And they're not afraid to go like not necessarily dark,
Yeah.
but they get into like real subjects with the family,
Yeah.
like through like problems with real life families and stuff. Like
Yeah.
they don't shy away from it or anything.
Well, it's definitely something I know that Spielberg has reflected on a lot, in which Schindler's List is kind of the pivot point of his career, where he stops making spectacle movies, and he made, not necessarily spectacle movies, but he stops making the whiz bang pow of his younger years, and he makes far more dramatic pieces. There's
Mhm.
spectacle to every Spielberg movie, let's just be honest, but that was the
Yeah,
easiest way for me to say that. And he talks about it at the times, like Close Encounters, E.T. He's echoing his own childhood a lot, of feeling like he's coming from a broken home or feeling like there's something missing in his life. And his return to religion through the process of Schindler's List is kind of what helps him feel whole again. Not necessarily religion, but his Jewish culture and everything else is,
yeah,
it allows him to start turning the corner into more
yeah.
adult dramatic storytelling.
Well, you
Where
can tell he's working out a lot of his like childhood, his own inner turmoil and stuff as a person in his younger movies, and then when he starts getting into the more serious stuff like Color Purple and Schindler's List and stuff, it's more about like him in society. Like it's not just about his inner turmoil anymore.
yeah, it is, it's certainly an interesting capsule to view a human being through, because it's no different. Every storyteller goes through this. Um, you make it a mission of telling the story you want to tell at the time, and then
Yes, exactly.
and you change as you change, your story changes. There are times
Yeah,
that I find, again, I'm finishing a move right now. There's boxes all around me in this room that are just very cleverly hidden off camera that people can't see. And there are tons of old notes of stuff that I was super passionate about. And if I look and read it now, I'd be like, okay, I like this, I like this, I like this, and I'd scratch probably half of it because I'd be like, no, that's not the story I think we
yeah,
really want to tell. And
yeah,
it's incredibly interesting to see Spielberg doing that through the time capsule of 2024, being able to go through and be like, I'm watching 75 and 77 and 82, and I'm watching all this kind of stuff, knowing the 90s and the 2000s is going to take us in a completely different direction for Spielberg.
yeah, yeah. And you can really only look on that like after 20 years
Right,
has passed. You can't really see that in the moment.
right. It's certainly something in which, going through big life changes right now, I can kind of see it in my own life, and it's really interesting to see that happening with somebody else through their artwork that is globally recognized. And kind of like, now looking back, just because it's a big lot of life changes this period of time in your life, and you look back at 10 years ago and you're like, what the fuck was I doing? Why was I doing that shit? Why did I
Yeah,
think that was like the best thing to do or the best idea, or why did I prioritize this over that? And it's certainly interesting to see that reflected in this style of film, that there's still something so gripping and so real about it, and it's about an alien crash landing and being befriending, what, an 11-year-old boy? Is that
yeah.
what
I
we're
think he's
calling?
10 years old in this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Elliot's 10, 11. I Max said 12 because the dissecting of the frogs later on in the film. So I was
I'm
like,
I'm pretty I'm pretty sure Henry Thomas was 10 when they filmed it.
okay.
Pretty sure.
Um, but again, to go through our traditional route, I adore the beginning. I love that everybody is faceless. It's very dark. You're getting shots through trees. You're getting shots through plants. You're getting blinding light. You're not sure what's happening, but yet you can follow it super coherently. I adore that.
Yeah. And it's another masterclass of hiding the effects that you might see as dodgy. Like it's masterclass in hiding them
Yeah.
and making them interesting while not only hinting at them. Like Jaws works 10 times better because you don't see the shark. And ET kind of has that thing up into a point. Like it's not until like 40 minutes in that you probably see ET, 30 minutes.
Yeah. Well, you're building to something, and you're allowing the audience to formulate the story for the most part. You're allowing the audience to do something and connect with it. And that's what I really appreciate, is this is a film in which it does the classics, like you said. It's crazy to think, especially now with the access to all the ILM documentaries on Disney Plus, and all the stuff that's available on YouTube to go look at behind the scenes things back in the day. It's crazy to see how masterfully done Star Wars was done at the time, but them also being so self-aware to go, no, we're gonna hide some things. We know we're not perfect. But yet
Yeah,
we've made the most culturally important hit of all time right before this. But
yeah.
now
And
we're still smart enough to go, we're not perfect. We're gonna get better. We're gonna avoid certain things, which is also gonna help our storytelling. It's impressive, to say the least.
yeah. And I mean that just goes to the budget again, is like they don't have all the money in the world to do these things. They have to work within a budget, even though Spielberg probably could have got away with doing whatever the fuck he wanted at that point.
After
He
Raiders,
probably,
absolutely,
yeah, he
absolutely.
could have pulled a James Cameron and just been like, you know what, give me 200 million. But yeah, I mean, he works within a constraint, and I think that's for the benefit of the movie.
Well, it's so impressive to look at history and see how many movies were that are so important to the zeitgeist of popular culture were made on shoestring budgets.
Yeah.
Were made with huge constraints because it forced creativity to be. Where if you want to criticize, I'm coming fresh off a showing of Deadpool and Wolverine last night, which is another reason I'm tired. And that movie could spend whatever it wanted because it was going to make it back no matter what.
Yeah.
And to see modern Marvel films or to see other big action pieces that are being made now that budget is c'est la vie half the time.
Yeah.
And you're seeing nothing's really being pushed forward. And yet in 82, they're like, hey, we have the hottest director on the planet and a $10 million budget. Figure it out.
Yeah. I don't want to comment on the whole state of filmmaking or anything, but
Yeah.
it's like there's a point where you kind of see that restraints are kind of a good thing at times.
Yeah, there has to be some form of. It's the classic. You have to have some rules to make something work.
Yeah.
You can't, you know. Why are sports important? Well, there's rules, so then they help confine what is and what isn't correct and what's not correct. Basic art forms, basic combat, all that kind of stuff. It's defined by rules. That allows us to define what is good and what is bad, what is and is not correct for the times. And that's what's so interesting about a movie like this with so many constraints on it financially, even though there should be zero financial constraints on it, because it forces them to be better. It forces them to go, how do we make the best with what we have versus blank check? Well, what do we want to see? We want to see this. Well, is this the best thing for the movie?
And it's a lot easier nowadays to just go, oh, I want to show a spaceship, so I'll just show the spaceship. Whereas back then, you'd be like, okay, it's going to be a really challenging thing to do. We can pull this off, but we're going to have to go, do a couple workarounds to make it look great.
Yeah. And I think that's the whole beauty of this film. I don't know if we necessarily need to go scene by scene. I'm more than happy to if we do. But I really appreciate about the movie as a whole is because the movie is so dark, it allows your imagination to just kind of go. And sometimes you're finding, I found it slightly frustrating, but I'm also surrounded by, as I'm watching this, I don't have my TV set up, so I'm watching it on the computer laptop that I am recording this on, and I've got a bunch of natural light coming in from me, so I'm like trying to shade stuff out, and I'm like, could we just have lit this a little bit better? Could we have just done this a little bit more? But then at the same time, I'm constantly thinking,
I think that's a compression thing.
But I'm also looking at, hey, I think this helps. It sets the tone. Because I really love moving from the intro to the first sequence with the boys playing D&D. Is you see Elliot's face for, 15 seconds? 20 seconds? And then he's immediately back in darkness again, just like E.T. So you're mirroring your two main characters immediately to they're being introduced through darkness. They're being introduced through their fears. And their fears are common, not common goals, but they're common ties that I really appreciate. Yeah. That you're immediately, they're put in the same spot all the time.
And all the kids, all the stuff with the kids is like so realistic. And it's like, it's a miracle that it's not annoying. It actually is entertaining.
Yes.
While also being realistic. Because, you have, 7 kids on set? That could be a shit show real quick.
You're talking about a recipe for disaster if it's not shot well, disciplined well, and understanding of who kids are.
Yeah,
And if you're not in touch with what kids can and cannot do, and you're not in touch with where they are in their life at that time, all you're doing is a disservice to everybody. You're doing a disservice to
yeah,
them as actors. You're doing a disservice to yourself as a storyteller. You're doing a disservice to your audience because they're not going to get an authentic product. You have to allow them to do things. What's crazy is not that they didn't make films with children beforehand, but the 80s feels like an explosion of kids and teens
yeah,
programming.
for
And
sure,
and
100%.
and so much of it, the stuff that's lasted, there's still common ties to it. You know, being a kid that's now transitioned um, through the late aughts and tens of high school and into college, we didn't go through traditional bullying for the most part. We didn't have those classic click things, but they still exist. They're just in different forms. So it allows us to look back at the kids of the 80s films and 90s films that were coming out at the time and going, "Oh, I can still understand that." Like, yeah, the athletic jock, that's not so much a thing anymore. Um,
Yeah, not really.
but there was that one person that got through to us like that, and you're like, "Yeah, I can understand that. I can see that."
Yeah, there's still archetypes that are recognizable for sure.
And it allows you to connect with them, and that's where, as you brought up with these kids, it all feels incredibly accurate and not
Yeah,
obnoxious.
yeah, I love the part where the kid's like acting like he's gonna touch the mom's butt, and then everyone's just like freaking out. It's great.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
100% realistic.
And they all grab knives to go outside because like, we're gonna take
Yeah,
care of
yeah.
this. And you're like, what are you talking about? And
Hey, that's pretty realistic too.
again, it's teen boys being teen boys and just being stupid, and I
Yeah,
appreciate that. And
yeah. Also, I wanted to bring up Steven Spielberg's resume in terms of child actors is incredible. It is like amazing how many child, not stars, but like people who still are actors nowadays are great actors nowadays still. Um, you got Henry Thomas in this. You got Drew Barrymore in this.
oh,
C. Thomas, is
see
it C.
Thomas
Thomas
Howell,
Howell?
yeah, he's in
Yeah,
this as
he's in
well.
this. I think a year later, no, it'd be 2 years later. He does Red Dawn.
Yep,
Um,
one of my absolute favorites. I adore Red
and
Dawn.
then you got
It's absurd, but I love it.
uh, you got Short Round in Temple of Doom,
Yeah, Kihi.
who, yeah, he's still great.
Oh.
I wrote a couple more down.
He's
Oh,
a made. Yeah,
Christian Bale in Empire of the Sun,
he
amazing.
he also produces and is very, very, very involved behind the scenes in Goonies and that entire
Yeah,
cast.
yeah, and then you got like Dakota Fanning in the middle 2000s.
Yeah,
So like, it's pretty incredible the list of just child actors that are in his movies.
very much so, and
And
it's
and
absurd.
even when they're not, even if when they're not like great actors or anything, he's still getting performances out of them that are like really good actually for child performers.
Because they're because he understands how to work with kids. He understands
Yeah,
how to let them be themselves and tell the story versus how do we how do we articulate this kid's performance into getting what we need. He's doing how do we allow them to give the performance and going through. Jurassic Park, another one. Two
oh
kids really
yeah,
helped carry that film. Um, it's
and
certainly something that's
it's
just
not
there.
even it's not even in just like genre films. I mean, in Schindler's List, there's like 10 different kids that give amazing performances in it.
Yeah,
And that's like a about as serious a drama you can get, really.
yeah,
But
and
like I think he just inherently knows how to talk and communicate to kids like what he wants.
yes,
Because I'm assuming it's because he was making movies when he was 12 years old with his friends.
yeah,
So there's kind of like an inherent way of communicating that you
Well,
just pick up on.
I appreciate the fact that, especially his early work, it it has the enthusiasm of a young person that you don't
Yeah, for sure.
that you have when you're a dreamer in your, you know, as you're growing up. You have that. And that's the sense, that's what I always appreciated. That's why I always appreciate being around passionate creative people that aren't too into their own shit. It's just passion because they have a story to tell, because
Yeah.
it's the same passion that you have when you're a kid telling your story. Part of the reason
Yeah.
that I've always, even on this show, talked about, times of you just picking up a camera and making movies with our friends in backyards and shit. Were they Hollywood studio quality movies? No.
Oh no, they were shit.
But there was the inherent sense of passion in that I really want to do this. I want to
Yeah,
try to
and
make something.
I'm glad you pointed that out because it's like there's a general sense of fun with absolutely no cynicism in there.
No.
And that's like his first like 15 years of filmmaking. That's like what I'd say overall is there's no cynicism in the filmmaking.
It's so sincere. It is
Yeah. Yeah.
so. There's a part of this film, when you really look at how much she's in this. Drew Barrymore's in this movie for what? Maybe 15 minutes? Maybe?
Yeah.
And Drew Barrymore is how old in this movie?
I'm pretty sure she's 6 years old when she's filming.
Right. And there's a big parts of this that to me are just stolen by Drew Barrymore just being
Oh,
herself.
she's fantastic. It's amazing the performance she gives.
And it's certainly something in which you are anchored by a 10-year-old boy. We have, how old is Mike supposed to be? 14 maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Because he's still in a. This was something I watched. There's a great documentary. It's called The Orange Years, and it's about the founding of Nickelodeon through pretty much the mid '90s, right before they went pretty corporate. And
Mhm.
when they're talking about the show Pete and Pete, is that young Pete is very comfortably in his child years, and older Pete is still has that childlike enthusiasm, but he's transitioning to teenhood, and it's not cool and okay to still play in kid world, but he still wants to be there. And
Yeah.
that's what I really interpret Mike being, is he wants to be a teen. He wants to be bigger than he is, and
Yeah.
and he's being forced to in the relationship that he has with his mom and his siblings as well, where he has to step up in the classic way of being, the man of the house, so to speak. But when he talks to Elliot and when he talks to Gertie and he talks to the rest of the kids around him, there's still a kid there who
Yeah.
wants to be a kid, who wants to be able to not grow up. And
Yeah.
it's a really interesting performance to see because he's still a shitty older brother sometimes, but yet he's still also willing and accept, oh wait, my kid brother's not crazy. My kid brother's,
Yeah.
and I'm here to help him as well, and I'm a part of this just as much as Elliot is. And there's such a nuanced performance to it, even though you think it's just a 14-year-old being a 14-year-old. And I love that, those common ties of what we've been speaking about in this movie.
Yeah. And Spielberg, there's just one shot that perfectly exemplifies everything you just said, which is that shot on the bus where all the kids around Michael are going crazy, and then he's like stressed out because he's like, I have real responsibilities now.
Yes, and I appreciate that because it was the shot. It was a shot in which that's one of the most valuable shots in this entire movie. You want
Hmm.
to understand a character, show that kid on that bus,
Yeah.
and it's after in a he's in a scene. One of the most powerful scenes of that entire movie has nothing to do with ET. It's the dinner table discussion about what
Hmm.
Elliot has seen before he discovers ET for real.
Yeah.
And he he just very innocently, a kid going through a divorce. Dad would have believed me.
Mm.
And Mike's got to sit there as his mom gets up and she's in tears in the dark by herself just crying because she feels she's not good enough. It is insane to for him to bicker simultaneously. He's bickering about, well, I set out the dishes. No, you didn't. Well, I set up breakfast. No, you didn't. And he's being called on his shit. But in the exact same moment, he's yelling at his younger brother. He's like, can you think of anyone besides your fucking self sometimes? Can you not try to hurt our mom? Can you please be.
Yeah.
And it's such a worthwhile dichotomy to look into in that it shows that kids have value. Kids understand things a lot better than we give them credit for. But yet
Yeah.
they're still rough around the edges. They're not finished products yet. But that doesn't mean they don't know what the hell's going on in the world. And I so
Yeah.
vastly appreciate that performance.
And that's another thing about the movie is like it doesn't go down to the level that it would nowadays, where like it goes down to a point where it's like, okay, this is for 12-year-olds.
Yes.
Like there's real stuff in this, and it's not taking for granted the fact that kids do understand a lot more than people, believe, or a lot of people believe. Like they can understand complex emotions even though they're tiny children.
Yes. And it, you're seeing that throughout all these performances. And I think that's the whole in a weird way, this isn't so over the top to make it seem as though, oh, these kids are destitute and their life sucks and everything's awful and there's nothing redemptive about their lives. In no way, shape, or form are they in a wasteland. It ain't fucking Mad Max for these kids.
Yeah, they're just a suburban family.
But it's very interesting to see how the entire first act is kind of setting up this very new sad existence for this family. And you're seeing them kind of be in despair. That's a heavy word for this, but it's very dark. You're not seeing a lot of light and bright in their worlds. You're not seeing a lot of at first you're not seeing a lot of positive family interactions. You're just seeing sadness. And
Yeah.
you're and strife between four family members. And
Also, just because we shouted out all the other actors, I gotta say, Dee Wallace deserves another shout. She's amazing in this movie.
it is certainly something in which you feel her struggle, you feel her pain.
Yeah, and it's not. There's not many like lines that say anything like that. It's
No,
just her acting.
it's her. I have a note here in that there is a whole lot of show and there's a whole not a lot of tell. There's
Yeah,
barely any tell in this movie. It is all show, 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 show. And I think that's where maybe you could try to throw in a few lines of dialogue for just some contextual understanding of things to maybe make it feel a little bit better. But this movie's all about showing. There's no there's no, oh, I'm telling you this because it's super important and you need to remember this because it's super important and you need to be no. It's I'm seeing how their reactions tell me the story. It's a
yeah.
very interesting thing to play with. And I adore that aspect of the film. Um, do you want to try something different? Do you want to just shout out some scenes that we found impressive and fun instead of going shot by shot by shot?
Sure. What can I write? Can I say my next note?
Hell yeah.
I said, M&M's, you fool,
was
with the
M-
Reese's Pieces.
was M&M's
It
offered
was
at
supposed,
first?
yeah, it was supposed to be M&M's, and then apparently they refused to have it in there because I guess they thought it was going to be too scary to kids. And then after this, the sales for Reese's Pieces just like skyrocketed.
No shit.
So M&M's probably lost out on millions of dollars because of that one decision.
I didn't even know Reese's Pieces were that fucking old to begin with. That
I think it was a newer thing in the 80s. Yeah,
and to think that M&M's was offered, that's the classic like Coke had the chance to buy Pepsi, but they didn't think it was even worthwhile enough to do it, and now they're like,
yeah,
fuck.
yeah,
I mean that's how Hollywood goes sometimes, and that's why I loved I love seeing that kind of stuff where you're just like, fucked yourself over.
yeah. Unfortunately, it's kind of also the start of product placement, which is like the cynical part of the filmmaking process that
Yeah.
gets added to the whole industry. But in this, it's not actually just product placement. It is just
Well,
a fun thing.
I think the worst part about where product placement goes in the 80s, and this film is a good representation of how it starts really importantly. One of the scenes I really appreciate is classic product placement. Even though you don't really see the product, you're being told about the product. And it's Star Wars action figures.
Yeah,
What 10-year-old boy in 1982 doesn't want to have Star Wars action figures?
yeah. And that's exactly how a 10-year-old would start becoming friends with someone is like, hey, I'll show you this. I'll show you all my toys.
I will show you all this stuff that I love. I mean,
Yeah.
how did we operate as kids? How did our neighborhood friends operate and our friends at school? It's the same thing I tell about everything to do with people. When I interviewed people, uh, one of the things I said, what is something in your life that you think you could connect with our kids over? And it was always something for me in which, can you find that common tie? Because we all have it. We're not friends with people just because we're in the same spot. How many people can
Mm.
go to work and not speak to anybody? Exactly. Like, how many people can live their lives just going from place to place and not really engaging or speaking more than they have to with people? But they have that small group or even that large group of social friends and family because of the common ties that they have of things that they love. You know,
Mhm.
I'm not as antisocial as you are. It's hard to be as antisocial as you are.
Not many. Yeah, I was gonna say not many people are.
You're as close to antisocial as you can get without being declared antisocial, essentially. Um,
Probably.
but if you have someone who you can talk movies with, you at least can usually have a conversation and enjoy it.
Oh yeah.
Same deal. I'm super social in settings that I'm very comfortable in. But that, I'll talk to strangers at a Comic-Con because we're all there for the same thing. We're finding things that we
Yeah.
absolutely love, and we have a common bond because of the things that we love. There are strangers at Lambeau Field next to me almost every single time I'm at a Packer game. But we're uniting over this common cause of loving the Green Bay Packers or loving the game of football. I can talk to them. It's exactly what a 10 fucking year old does. It's what we did as kids. How many our entire neighborhood, because I like Star Wars the most and you really like Star Wars at the time, we both had lightsabers. Everybody had to go get a lightsaber. So we had to have lightsaber
Hmm.
fights. This was during the prequel
Yeah.
times. How many of us, we all had to have Pokemon cards because we all played Pokemon because we all loved Pokemon. And the kids who didn't play Pokemon, we weren't really friends with them
Yeah. True.
because that was a connective tissue with us and them. And I love that scene of him trying to show Greedo and Lando Calrissian. Also, really smart fucking product placement there, George, by the way. The fact that it's Lando and Boba Fett at the end. It's just like, hey, those two really important hot new characters that I just created, those are the ones we're going to highlight in this. Not Luke Skywalker,
Yeah.
not Han Solo. the two like, oh, those guys are cool characters.
I'm, I wonder if Steven asked George if he could use them, or if George went, "Hey, would you use this in your movie?"
I part of
Because
me
I could see George Lucas going, "Hey, why don't you just shove these in there?"
the thing is, I don't know if I could see 1980 George doing that, but I could certainly see mid 1990s George doing that.
I mean, his initial deal for Star Wars included toy rights, so it's like he was a savvy businessman.
The thing is, this is, I mean, I don't know how much of, you never know how much of this is just true and what's not true. Um, George always says that part of the reason he really vouched for merchandise because the studio didn't care about it was he felt that he had more stories to tell than what they wanted to tell in the first movie. And if he at least had the merchandising rows, he's like, I can make posters and I can make t-shirts to advertise this thing so people actually go see it. But then there's the cynic that's like,
Yeah,
it's a whole lot of plastic that you've got in this world, George. It's a whole lot of
yeah,
plastic. But yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy to see. But I adore that scene of him trying to be friends with ET, and he's doing it through here are my toys. Here's this. Here's this. Here's that. And
yeah.
I adore that. What are some other scenes that you really appreciate in this movie?
Well, one of the things we should probably mention is the whole like psychic link between ET and Elliot. It's one of the things that never is stated. It's 100% visual,
Yes.
and if you were just listening to the movie and you couldn't see anything, you would never get any of that
No.
at all. It's
Absolutely not.
100% visual
It's
because it's like him yawning, and then Elliot, or no, it's like ET is like clearly tired, and
yeah.
then Elliot starts yawning, and then there's the part with the umbrella upstairs, and obviously when ET's drinking the Coors. Love that scene.
E.T. and Pat Mahomes could be good friends. They both love Coors Light. But it is certainly interesting. I do love those scenes of setting up that psychic link because it's more the exploration of how are we the same and how do people come to communicate versus I'm an alien that can do this.
Well,
Or
do you view this as it's a scientific thing or it's a fantastical thing?
I view that
Is
as
it like ET has this ability to do this, or is it like ET's race somehow can do this? You know,
I view this.
scientifically.
So I don't know how necessarily the alien race of ET is inherently, however they are Star Wars canon, so you never know. Maybe they're using the Force. Um,
Yeah, maybe.
Technically speaking, they do have space in the Galactic Senate. Um,
Yeah,
but I view it more as the fantastic because I look at the future scenes where all the science and all the medical science of the time is going, and it clearly fails, and it just shows bad things happening. But then, in him just mirroring things, doing this, doing this, doing this, all those kind of things. Those are what sets up this psychic, emotional link between the two of them. And then when science gets involved, it goes to shit.
yeah. And it's important to set that up early because like they go pretty dark with it. I mean, Elliot's like straight up dying at the end with ET. It's not like it's just ET suffering at the end. It's Elliot is also with him.
Yeah, what I really appreciate is it's pretty sudden. I would say the
The
turn
ending, yeah, it is.
the turn into darkness is pretty sudden. I think we could use one more subtle little thing there. However, I really like how there's subtle setup for bigger moments through these psychic link scenes where he's got the planets in orbit using the fruit, and Drew Barrymore's scared, Gertie's scared. Mike's scared. Elliot's even afraid. And E.T. is also afraid. And they're all just getting over it together. And the psychic link is starting to mold and happen. And then when we get the most iconic scene in the movie, well, one of two, I guess, depending on your perspective, of when Elliot's dressed up as a ghost or a hunchback or whatever the hell he's supposed to be. His mom says
Yeah,
hunchback later, but I don't
yeah,
know how that's a hunchback. But whatever. Um, when he takes off and you get that John Williams score of them biking in front of the moon, which I had tears in my eyes watching that again.
I think it's the top 5 theme of all time.
That is movie magic at its finest.
Yeah,
It's hard to do something that special. And it's all to just set up this little device, and then within seconds it goes from, oh my god, this is movie magic. I will weep at anything like that. To, oh hey, Elliot's abandoned in the forest because ET doesn't know what's going on. Where's ET? We don't fucking know. Where, where's
yeah,
where's Elliot? Apparently he's fucking dying essentially, but we don't really get it. Um, and the only subtle hint of that is him coughing during the radar test beforehand. And I really loved that aspect of it, where I was like, I noticed it, and I was like, oh, okay, that's nice little subtleties there. Okay, good. Um, whereas the only other time you see the psychic link, it's far more comedic. It's, Elliot's getting drunk because ET's getting drunk. Um,
yeah.
he's reacting because ET's doing stuff at home, and that's a great scene. I love it. But it's certainly far more. The turn is right after that iconic scene. Could you imagine that scene without a John Williams score?
No,
It's pretty,
like,
it's beautiful, but
it, well, I mean, it has like probably top 10 most iconic shots ever. The bike against the moon,
that'd be another good episode of this show. What are the most
like it,
iconic shots ever?
that's gonna be in every single movie montage to the end of time.
And it should be,
Like
because if you don't have it,
it
it discredits you. If it discredits your montage if you don't have
yeah,
it.
it is definitely like iconic.
I mean,
And
shit,
then
it's
that,
the introduction to the Amblin Company.
yeah,
Is that
exactly.
sign?
Yeah, yeah, he based the whole company off that logo. Yeah. And then that shot where they find ET in that like ravine, that's like
Holy
traumatizing.
shit, that's dark. There's a raccoon there,
Yeah,
theoretically like picking at the bones or something, which I'm like, that's not really what raccoons do, but
yeah,
okay. But it's to say like he's just been left for dead. Wild,
yeah.
wild, dude. That's insane. But the turn is extremely quick, and then I love that they get ET home, and this entire time, the only people we've visually seen are the kids and the mom. That's it.
Mm.
Other than that, the people in this movie that we've seen, they're faceless, they're nameless, they do not matter. They are just shown to be dark and bad. That is it. And I really,
Yeah.
really
The
love
good
that
old days
portrayal.
when you, the good old days when the government was the evil entity.
You mean just like today, we just want to pretend that it's not? Um,
Yeah. Well, I, I love it. I love it because it's like you can show the government as evil, and you're not like making a political statement. It's just it's just accepted. The government's evil.
especially, like I said, I find this whole thing to be somewhat allegorical for a kid going through life change. This isn't a story. I remember I just re-listened to our box office episode with The Exorcist, and you shared what William Friedkin had said about The Exorcist, that this movie's not about an exorcism. This movie is about mothers and their children. There just happens
Yeah.
to be an exorcism in it. To me, this isn't a movie about an extraterrestrial. Even though it's named E.T., this is about a child
Yeah.
going through life change and learning
Well,
to deal with trauma.
the original, yeah, the original title of the movie is A Boy's Life. Like, no hint at a alien at all. It's just, yeah, it's about a child who just happens to find an alien.
And it his relationship with ET allows him to be a better brother, it allows him to be a better son, it allows him to be a better human in general.
Yeah, and like the family comes together because of ET.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning, Gertie's not really. It doesn't have problems or anything, but Michael and Elliot clearly are like at odds.
Yes.
Put it
It,
lightly.
and mom is feeling like she can't do anything to protect her children. She can't do anything to help her children. And at the end, they're all clinging to each other because they all need each other.
Yeah,
And they realize that no, their family's just fine as is. They don't need dad back from Mexico with his girlfriend. They don't need um, somebody outside to come teach them and help them be better from a human standpoint. What they needed is their son to go through some life experience and understand what he has to do and what they have to do to be supportive of him. And
yeah,
it's I think that's where there always has to be a human tie for the vast majority of films. You have to care. You have to understand.
yeah. That definitely helps.
You have to. I mean, shit. You can look at. Let's go back a single year to Raiders from ET. In that movie, Indy learns maybe not the best thing for me to do. It's kind of crazy that it takes that long, but he does. And it's because you're understanding, okay, well, there's things more important than just me getting this treasure.
But also, it's not like the movies were made to tell that lesson.
Yeah.
There's lessons in the movie, but they're not hitting you over the head with it. It's just something that's implied. It's something inherent in the story. It's not. Yeah, like it's a little. Nowadays, it's a lot more like in your face with the messages you're trying to tell.
Well, even if it's a good movie, Inside Out, great movie. It's a phenomenal movie. But
Yeah,
it's very much in your face of, okay,
yeah,
we gotta give this kid space. We gotta give this kid time. We have to understand that what kids are going through when big life changes like that are happening. And it's very much present
hmm
and abundantly clear and obvious. Where this, the window dressing is a boy and his alien.
yeah,
But underneath the whole product that you're given is this lesson about being a better person, being a better human being, learning to care for others, learning to care for yourself in a better way. Um, and it's a very interesting dichotomy um, to grasp, in which so many times now it's I want to tell a story about this, and then they put the window dressing up. How do you tell it? That's not the point.
yeah,
The point is tell the story, and if there's a human
yeah.
tie to it, we'll find it and we'll
Yeah,
grasp onto it.
if you want to throw a message in a movie, that's fine. It's just don't have that be your central point of making the movie.
Right. The story is the point. The
Yeah,
story is the story. It's something that I wish George Lucas would hear himself a little bit more on when he does stuff. The story is the story is the story. The story is the important part. That's why the first three Star Wars, fucking great. The next three,
2.5, I'd argue.
I will hear no Return of the Jedi slander just because I still think it achieves the goal that it needs to achieve. Regardless of if they may have been Wookiees or not at one time. I'm a fucking Ewok fan and I love them.
I like the Ewoks.
Um, but the
And
story is the story is the story.
You don't get Warwick Davis without the Ewoks.
That's true. You don't get Warwick Davis to do that. So, um, I really just I love all the underpinnings of Elliot and the family through ET, and then when they're put together in that plastic ER/holding cell that they're put in, essentially.
Yeah.
That shit's dark, and we're not talking visually only. We're talking like emotionally. Jesus Christ, that's dark.
Yeah. And I read earlier that um, Spielberg got like medical professionals to play the roles because obviously it would come across as more authentic,
Yeah.
and they can spit out all that medical jargon without sounding stupid.
Right.
Um, and then another thing he was going for is like, even though it's a medical thing that you're supposed to inherently know is like trying to help ET, it's filmed like, oh no, they're like fucking him up.
Yeah.
Like it looks like torture almost.
Yeah. And it's what I love is it's a really accurate representation again of what a kid would think it is. When
Yeah,
you're being
exactly.
poked and prodded and shocked and you're getting someone's chest being pushed up and down and tubes are everywhere. That's scary for a kid, man. And when it's not working, and as an audience member, you know it's not working.
Yeah.
It's so nice to see that because it's not the hopeless situation of a hospital. It's it's the eyes of a child not understanding a situation, but as an audience member, you still understand it and know it's the right thing to try to do,
Mhm.
but yet
and
you know it's not working.
and with that scene, it's a it's why you have practical effects. It's like the biggest thing of it's like the prime example of why you have practical effects is this movie. Because you throw it in there and you have something look realistic, and a 6-year-old and like a dog and a 10-year-old, they're gonna react like it's a real thing. So like Drew Barrymore's reaction when they're testing, like trying to bring ET back, it's like,
Heartbreaking.
yeah, I mean, she's really reacting like it's real.
Fucking heartbreaking to see her do that. And then to see Elliot have to go through it. You're like, Jesus fucking Christ. Can we cut
Yeah,
this kid a break? Can we cut this kid a break? This is brutal, dude.
Henry Thomas is so fucking good in that scene.
And again, it's we're seeing all this in darkness. We're seeing all of this. There's no light, bright anything. And I really appreciate that you don't really see the doctors' faces much. You see little cuts of their faces, but you don't see all of them visually. And again, it's almost like in a kid's world is this. What's in front of me? What am I doing?
Well, yeah, and it's filmed more on the level of a kid intentionally.
Yeah.
Like he's intentionally filming it at like eye level for a kid, not adult.
And it's such a smart choice to do because again, it immediately the medical professionals, they're not doing anything wrong. They're not
Oh,
villains,
no, 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 yeah,
but because of the way they're shot, you immediately know that's not the right thing to do. Because of the way
yeah.
they're shot, you know this is bad. And it's such an appreciated feature that the cinematography in this is so good. Who's the cinematographer on this? I did not catch that when I was looking at the credits.
Um, I can't remember his name. It's like Dave something. Dave. I'll look it up. I know he also did Empire of the Sun, but he didn't work with Spielberg all that much, which is really surprising to me.
Well, Spielberg, you see him going through a lot of cast and crew. Eventually, gets to like his team, and he works with his team moving forward, which I think is possibly a disservice to him. Um,
In terms of cinematography, yes, I am not a fan of Janusz Kaminski all that much. There's a couple movies where I think it's great, like Saving Private Ryan, but his style gets pretty old pretty quick.
well, I think that's how you keep yourself fresh.
It's Alan Davio, something like that.
I mean,
So he did,
it's shot brilliantly.
yeah, Empire of the Sun. He did Bugsy, which I just watched, which is good. Color Purple, another Spielberg.
But I think, tell me if you feel the same way. In no shape or form am I saying the movies of Spielberg, the quality dips from Schindler's List on. Because I mean, same year you have Schindler's List and Jurassic Park. It's
Mhm.
weird because Jurassic Park feels like old Spielberg and Schindler's List feels like the beginning of new Spielberg.
Yeah.
But it's almost as if when he as he gets Schindler's List and moves forward, that's when I stop being as interested in Spielberg's movies. Not that I don't want to see them, not that they're not good, but that's when I'm like, okay, I know he's going to make a heavy drama piece, and this is what he
I think
does, and
it's a lot. It's a lot less of the wonder. It's a
yeah,
lot more grounded. So maybe that's it for you.
yeah,
What's causing that?
and I mean that's a possibility, but I think that also coincides with, again, finding his team, his people that he always does stuff with. It feels like it's less of the exploration of what can we do and more of what are we doing to achieve our goal versus look at what we could do and figuring out and making the best thing. Oh my god, that's cool. I think
Yeah.
that's where, to me, peak Spielberg is obviously Raiders. I don't think it gets better than Raiders, but I also think Raiders is a perfect film because he has a goal in mind, but he also is like, what if we did this? What if we did this? What I'll take this person's opinion. I'll work with this person. I'll try this. I'll do this. Whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say Schindler's List is, but I think that's the best movie ever made. So
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Then I really think the most important thing after this is obviously the ending sequence. I love kids just being kids, and the whole messaging in that last sequence is so much. Don't lose the wonder in your life. Don't, if you believe something is
yeah,
right, do it. Because the kids are just on bikes and they're outrunning police cars because they just
it's great. Love it.
it's absurd and ridiculous, but it's perfect.
I
And
love how you can also tell that all the people riding the bikes are stuntmen who are 40 years old.
yes, I did notice that
I love it.
When Elliot's magically like perfectly stanced for a bike. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I loved that bike chase scene is so much of childhood planning. Childhood, we're doing this, and they just do it, and
yeah,
it's galvanizing your friends and your friends being there for you. I love how those three boys are complete shitheads the entire film. They don't have a lot of redemptive qualities other than they're Mike's friend.
yeah,
And yet, when Mike yells at them, stealing a car with an alien body from government agents, he just stops and says, "Get the bikes and meet us at the playground." They don't bat an eye and they're like, "Let's go." Because they're like, "No, that's
yeah,
my friend. I help my friend, and this is what my friend needs." Fucking chef's kiss. I love that sequence.
yeah. And then the John Williams score in there, it's great.
Oh, and the second they take off on those bikes, are you kidding me? If you're not,
Yeah, another
if you don't have a tear coming
another
down your eye,
iconic moment.
if you don't have a tear coming down your eye when that happens, I don't know who the fuck you are. Because unless you're just
Yeah,
in awe of the magic, because that's movies, baby. That's movies
yeah,
right there.
and I can clearly see the seams in like how they did it
Who
because
cares?
it's clearly like stop motion and puppets and stuff. But I'm like, I don't care. It's awesome.
Well, they also
It looks incredible.
yeah. I mean, they're just pulling the bikes by rope. That's literally what Dennis Muren said to do. He's like, "We'll just pull them with rope,"
Whatever works.
and yet there's such a childlike wonder to it that is so incredibly special.
Hmm.
And then to set up a final goodbye, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and I mean, they filmed it in sequential order because the last time the kids see ET is literally the last time they see
Oh,
ET. So it's
brutal.
like So it's like Drew Barrymore, a 6-year-old, is like never going to see E.T., a friend, I guess you would say at that point,
Oh,
again.
brutal.
And and then he also took pains to like, they never saw the ET like costume or anything without an actor in it or without puppetry also there. So it's not like they ever just saw a lifeless ET. So it's really smart and it's great filmmaking.
Again, that's knowing how to work with your staff, knowing how to set them up to
Mm-hmm.
succeed. Because I remember the first time I learned that they don't shoot movies in sequence. I was like, what? And now, obviously, I know
Yeah.
that's what you do. You don't just say, well, we need to be here for this in the beginning, but then we're going to come back later. It's like, no, you just shoot all the shit there,
Yeah.
and you shoot the shit for other stuff, right? Because you're like, well, you're an adult, you know the story. But that's so incredibly smart, and it's incredibly grounded because then you've lived the journey.
Yeah. And I mean, that has to be like, take the kids acting to like 100 times better than what it would have been. Because it's so much easier to understand a character when you've been going through the entire emotional journey they go on,
Yes,
rather than like, okay, in this scene, it's going to be right after you just met ET, and now the next scene you shoot is going to be like, the fucking dress up scene where he dresses ET up. Like, it helps so much.
absolutely. I mean, I remember seeing the behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings, and they didn't shoot it in sequence, but the last thing they shot pretty much was always the character's last shot.
Yeah.
Where when Elijah Wood writes the last bits of the pages to give it to Sam, that's the last thing they ever did with Elijah Wood on Lord of the Rings, and you can just tell how emotional that is because it's the entire journey of Frodo Baggins put into that book to pass to his friend.
Yeah. I imagine it has to be like incredibly helpful for actors.
Because you understand what you've gone through, you understand the journey you've gone through um, at such a high level compared to
Mm-hmm.
okay, hey, you're in this scene and you've been through this big journey and so now you have to say goodbye to a friend.
Yeah. I
Action.
mean,
It's like
a direct a director's like main goal is to just get great performances out of actors, and that's doing like half the work for you.
it's the classic. You need to put your people in a place to succeed. Otherwise, you're not doing your job. And
Exactly. Yeah.
and I think that's where sometimes when we look at modern film compared to older film or just quality film versus poor quality film, that is you're not putting your people in a place to succeed. You're not putting your
Yeah.
actors in a place to succeed because then when you don't put them in a place to succeed, you don't put your audience in a place to succeed and understand what you're trying to accomplish.
True. Yeah.
You know, if you, I mean, how cheap is it if you know? I wouldn't be shocked if Spielberg did something similar in Jurassic Park. I don't think you get the same performance. I could be wrong, but same deal. I don't think you can't put an actor day one in Jurassic Park and be like, you're getting attacked by a T Rex. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Versus someone who's like, okay, hey, you started here, you're always really weary of it. Now you've seen the journey, you've been attacked, you've been electrocuted, all this shit's happened to you, and at the last moment, your life is on the line and you are cornered. Action. You have that
Yeah.
whole build up into that's what I
And
have.
especially because it's the most emotional scene of the movie.
Yeah,
Like, a lot of the movie weighs on this ending being good.
yeah,
So the fact that they nail it is like great.
tremendous, tremendous. I think we've done a pretty good talk of the movie so far. It's a time
Yeah. I
should
mean,
I should I ask our
I don't have that
questions?
much. Sure. Yeah, I don't have that much actual notes left. I mean, they set up the flowers, call back later.
Yeah.
Great. It's just simple payoffs are so important.
you have
It's
to make
amazing.
you have to make your audience believe, and you have to pay things off. They do
Yeah.
that constantly. If you look at this, it doesn't seem like that big of a film, because it's not. But you're constantly giving your audience a payoff.
Yeah.
Oh, he can regenerate life. Okay, that's interesting. Oh, he can make things levitate. He can control things. He has mind control or a psychic link emotionally with this child. You're like, oh shit, this is a fucking alien superhero right here. That's crazy. But every couple minutes, you see another one. You're like, whoa, okay, and you're getting payoffs to the ultimate payoff. It's
Oh, we should probably ask the question. My phone is about to die, apparently.
all right. Is this movie worth a rewatch?
100%.
Oh
I
yeah,
watch it every Halloween.
every Halloween. That's your time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. I think that it's certainly worth a rewatch, um, and it's certainly worth the time. I think another reason why I didn't want to go scene by scene was because it's just you have to let the magic speak for itself sometimes, and people should go watch this
Yeah.
and
And
enjoy it.
yeah, exactly.
And is it worth the box office?
Easily.
Easily, I would 100% agree.
Probably worth more.
It there is so much money that this movie is worth, and it's worth every penny because it makes you feel something special. Um, all right, so let's do our random number generator. Let's see what movie are we doing in our next big box office. Oh boy, did we lose you? We good? You still there? Oh no.
Can you hear me?
I can still hear you. We're good. We still hear you.
Okay, I had to switch over to my iPad.
Because the phone died.
Yeah.
Oh,
It died.
that is professional podcasting at its finest. If I've ever
I didn't
achieved
think
it.
didn't
Oh,
think I'd need it.
all right. Well, we rushed it a little bit. This is certainly worth a rewatch. How often would you say someone should rewatch this movie?
I do it once a year, but I think like once every 5 years would be perfect.
I think this is a great movie to rewatch when you want something to believe in. That makes sense
That's a good way
because
of putting it.
not to tinge my review that's going to be recorded right after this. I went and saw Deadpool and Wolverine. It's a good movie. It's a fun movie, but in my opinion, it lacks the same heart that the first two Deadpools do. And I kind of went out of it. I wasn't gutted, but I was a little bit like, okay. I thought I was going to be like hooping and hollering, going, "Oh my god, it was amazing!" And I kind of went out going, "Okay." Meanwhile, my wife had a completely different reaction. She absolutely loved it. She said it was her favorite Deadpool. So, you know,
Oh,
so
okay.
it's an interesting it's an interesting thing to notice. But I was tired. I was on the verge of falling asleep, even with natural light surrounding me and in this stressed out environment. I was just like, and when I was watching this film, I was at home, I was at peace, and it made me believe in the magic of movies and the magic of storytelling. And I cannot tell you how much I love it. So it's certainly worth a rewatch for me, and it's worth every penny at the box office that you can possibly muster. But we have to continue this big box office series, so let's find what year are we going to.
All right, 1 second. Oh God. Oh, 1 sec.
Verifying you're a human, is this what we're doing?
2008. You know what that means, right? Oh, never mind. I'm wrong.
Say,
It's actually
it's great.
It's The Dark Knight.
I was gonna say that's one of my favorite movies of all time. I thought you were trying to freak me out for a second there, motherfucker.
No, I'm thinking of 2009.
Yeah, because I know 2009 is a fucking train wreck.
Yes. Yeah, Dark Knight.
We're good. Let's
Yeah.
go. I'm so fucking excited now. So I do have our schedule for the next couple shows here that I can talk about. So the next time we do a big box office movie, it's going to be 3 episodes from now, because our next episode we are going to be doing a cult classic movie again, and we are going to be watching The Burbs, starring Tom Hanks, Carrie Fisher, which is an absolute classic favorite of mine that I adore, as does Dylan. Love The Burbs. It's fun to get that on there. Then we come back here with a newer concept for the show. We've never done this one. It's going to be really fun. In which we're not making any notes beforehand. We're just watching the movie and trying to fix it. We are going to try to fix Batman vs. Superman. 2 episodes of the ONETA Movie Show from now. I don't think it's going to be that big of a feat. I really don't.
Well, I guess it's pretty easy to improve upon the movie. So
Yes, but can you fix it entirely? That's a different story. And we should probably discuss parameters to start that show, but I love the fact that we're just going in blind with the fix it. Fix it. Figure it out. So we're going to do fix it, and then 3 episodes from now is we're going to continue the big box office series with The Dark Knight, which is great and is going to be so much fun because it's one of my absolute favorite films of all time. And yet it hit the perfect time when I was already obsessed with Batman and just made me even more obsessed with Batman than I was. So it's going to be a lot of fun over at the show.
yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it too, so I'm actually looking forward to it.
I was going to say, I haven't, I think I caught half of it on TV at like someone's place one time when I was just stuck doing something that I wasn't like choosing to do myself. And I was like, oh shit, The Dark Knight's on. Fuck it, I'll at least do this because then I'll enjoy my time. I was like, and I think other people started to come and watch it with me because like, oh shit, The Dark Knight, that's way better than this shit. I was like, I know, right?
Yeah.
So I'm excited to watch The Dark Knight though. It's gonna be. I can't remember the last time I watched Dark Knight start to finish. Oh wait, no, I did watch it about a year ago because I went on a small Batman kick. That's what it was. But always happy and excited to watch The Dark Knight. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But I hope y'all enjoyed this episode. I hope we got another troll. Maybe.
Maybe I don't think I badmouthed anyone today.
I know, we like this movie too much. There's not a single bad thing to say about it.
One sec, let me think if I can think of anyone to badmouth. I can't think of anyone, honestly. Oh, actually, I got one.
Okay.
There's that fat kid in the classroom with Elliot that really wants to kill his frog.
Yeah, that's not cool. Don't kill animals.
Yeah, he's like wrestling it from Elliot. I'm like, dude, you really want to kill that frog? That's kind of weird.
It's kind of fucked up. Why are you killing frogs, man? It's not cool.
Yeah.
It's not
Lose
cute.
weight, Eddie.
It's not cute. It's not cute at all.
He's the Eric Cartman of that school, maybe.
But I hope everybody enjoyed this episode of the ONETA Movie Show. If you did, give us a like, give a comment, give a subscribe. Go check us out on our socials at Instagram and TikTok. Go check out some merchandise over at ptecreative.etsy.com. Go get yourself some good stuff. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you didn't like. And Dylan and I will be happy to talk about some more movies for you pretty soon. We'll check you later. Peace out, friends. Peace, love, and hugs to you all. Go watch a good movie.